Hi, my name is Patrick, but you can call me 26, and today we are going to make a short video on how you can make an API call using URL sessions, right? So the first thing you could do is you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, and let's get it moving. Now, our app is going to be pretty simple. What we're going to do is we are going to use the Rick and Morty API. And for now, since it's just for illustrative purposes, we're just going to get the API that lists the various characters, and we're going to create this list of the characters from Rick and Morty, right? So that's what we're going to do, and let's get to it. So for the particular API, we're going to go to the documentation, and we're interested in the REST endpoint, and we want the characters, right? So you're going to get the base URL is going to be Rick and Morty app/API. Then you're going to get characters, right? So if you get that and you get the base URL plus the endpoint that you're currently interested in, which is in our case we want the Rick and Morty API character. If you take that, put it in your browser, what you're going to get is going to be this object, right? Now this particular object is going to be pretty difficult to read. And what we could do is we could come here, get all of it. Make sure you get all of it, right? Okay, it can be a bit, okay, just hit Command A, copy it like so. Come to this website called JSON Formatter. Now JSON Formatter will allow you to see the data a bit better. So you could come here, get rid of this, paste it here, right? And then we are going to say format JSON like so. And now when you hit format JSON, you're going to get this the results in this format, which is going to be a bit better for you to read, easier for you to read because it's a bit more structured. So what we have is we have this outer object, right? It's JSON, so the O in JSON stands for object. So we have this particular object, and in it we have a couple of results. We have the info, which contains more information about the results, which itself is an object, right? But we're not interested in that. What we're particularly interested in is this array that is called results right here, right? So this array has within it an array of various characters, right? So we have the first one called Rick Sanchez, his status, his species, his type, his gender, where he lives, okay, his origin, where he's from rather, his location, his image, which we are going to use, the episodes he appears in, the URL, I'm guessing, which is a URL to this, and then when it was created, right? And then we have the next character, which is going to be Morty Smith, his ID, all his information, right? So we're going to be interested in two things here. We're going to be interested in the ID so that it can be identifiable for use in our list, and also we're going to be interested in their image, right? So we get the image from the image in here, which is going to be the image here, right? The one with the JPEG. And also, of course, we need their name, right? So those are the three things we're particularly interested in. But in order to get to that, we first have to destructure it by getting to, destructure it so that we can get to the inner object, right? So I'm going to show you how we're going to do that, and we can have access to all these objects, and let's get to that. Now, the first thing we want to do is we just have the starter, the template app. Here it is. And what we're going to do is we're going to come here and we're going to create a new group. And this new group is going to be called model. And what we're going to have in the model is going to be a new file. So we come here and we say, we want a new file. Or you could just hit Command N, whichever you prefer. And this is going to be, it's just going to be a Swift file. And we're going to call it character model, right? Character model, right? Hit that, come here. And what we're going to have is we're going to have a struct here. The struct is going to be character, like so, right? Character, and it's going to be codable. Now, codable allows us to decode it from JSON and into Swift structs, right? Convert them into Swift objects, right? So that's what codable does. That's the protocol. And we're also going to have identifiable, because ultimately we're going to be putting them in a list, right? A SwiftUI list, right? So it's going to complain that we do not actually conform to the protocol, to the identifiable protocol, right? So for that, we need ID. So we say let ID, and ID is going to be an integer, right? Integer. And for us, we're lucky that every single name we have has the exact same name. Every single name that we use has the exact same name. So we're not going to have to use coding keys, right? So we come here and we say let image, and image is going to be a URL, right? Now, if you're using coding keys, like if you wanted to use a different name, what you would do is you would come here and we say something like private enum, and this is going to be called coding keys, right? And this is going to be string and coding key, right? And then you're going to have something like case name, and in case the name is going to be something different, you would have like maybe name is going to be name underscore US, but in our case all our names are the same, right? And you would need to if the names are the same, you could just leave them as like case ID and case image, right? So if you have those three, where there is a difference between the name here and the name here and the name in the JSON, you would put the name in the JSON and then assign it to the property that you just created. But in our case, all of them are the same, so this is actually not required, right? So this is not required because we can the names that we're going to use for the properties directly match the names that are going to be on the JSON, right? So the next thing we need to do is going to be, this is our inner object, right? This is the object that is going to be inside, right? But now we need to look at the outer object. So for that, we say struct, and remember, this is going to be the response. So we could say something like character response. And remember, the response is going to be, it's going to contain an array of results, right? And this is going to be codable. And codable means it can be decoded into JSON. That is code, encode and decode, right? And what we're going to have is, we're just going to have the same name, which is going to be results. And in the results is going to be an array of character, right? So these are the two that we actually need in our, this is all that we need in our model so that we can transform the JSON into objects in Swift. Let's have a look at what the data actually looks like so you can better understand it, right? So the response is this entire object, right? From the entire object is the response, right? Let's just say this is the entire object, this is the response, and then inside these are the various characters that we want. Sanchez, his ID is an integer, which is 1. His image is in a URL, and what else do we need? His name, which is a string, right? And you can see that that matches what we have here. The ID is an integer, the name, and the string, right? So that is done. And now the next thing we need to do is we would need to you don't actually need to do this, but what we're going to do is we're going to use a view model or a network service that is going to fetch this, right? And we're going to make it conform to the we're going to use observable, right? We're going to use observable because it's going to save us some time and we don't have to keep track of changes with published, right? It saves us from having to use published, right? So what we do is we could come here and we say here, I like putting it in a group. Let's put it in a group. Let's say here, new group, and the new group is going to be called services like so. And then we're going to come here and say new file, and this one is going to be a Swift file, and we are going to call this, network service, right? Network service, create network service, come here, and what we want is going to be, the class is going to be network service like so, and then we're going to put the macro at observable like so. And if you actually do this, you have to use a class rather than a struct, right? I'm going to create a number of videos on this particular issue about observables and all that, and we can have a look at them, right? Now what you're going to do is we're going to create a function, and this function is going to be called fetch characters. And what's it going to do? Well, pretty straightforward. We're just going to come here and we get the URL, so we say God let URL. What's the URL? URL is going to be URL like so, and here we're going to have the string in question. And what's the string? We can get the string. Let's get the string, and we can get the string from, we want the characters one, right? So we could come here, copy this with character like so. Just come here, copy this, or you could type it out, whichever is more efficient for you. So that, I think we have double quotation marks here, we could ditch that. So you either get this, else, come here, say else, we return, right? Return. Then we're going to call the URL sessions, URL session like so, and we're going to say shared.data task. data task with, and it needs a URL, which we luckily have. And then in our closure, we need three things. We need a data, a response, and an error, right? So it requires three arguments that we do not have. So let's give them all a name because we're going to use them. We're going to have a data, then we're going to have the response, spell it correctly. Or if you spell it incorrectly, remember to use that spelling. And then the third argument is going to be the error, right? So the first thing we would want to do is we sort the error if we have any. We say if let error equals error, what do? We want to print it to our console. We're not going to do anything to it. We're just going to come here and we say error dot localized description. So we have an error here and we're just going to return. So if you get an error, return, right? And then we get the data. We say guard let data, and data is just going to be data, like so. Else, what are we going to do? We're just going to return, right? So we get that. Then the next thing we need to do is we need to get our code and try and decode it, right? So we're going to use a do catch block. So come here, say do, like so. Come here, say catch, like so. And what we're going to do in the do catch block is we're going to get the decoder. So we say let decoder, and this is just going to be JSON decoder, like so. This is what is going to decode our JSON. And we say let decoded data. And what's decoded data? We're just going to say try. And what do we want to try? We want to say decoder, like so, dot decode. And what do we decode? The type is going to be character response, the outer one, right? Character response. So we get the character response and we say self, right? And where do we get it from? We get it from the data that we have just arrived, right? So we get that from the data, right? And then afterwards we say self dot we haven't created it, right? So what we need is going to be an array of all the possible characters, right? So we could come here and we say var character, right? And now the advantage of using observable is that we don't have to say published. Tell it that this is a mark it with published, right? With the wrapper published. We don't have to do that, right? What we could do is we could just come here and we say this is going to be characters are just going to be filled with character, right? And it's going to start off as empty, right? So that's going to be an array. And what we want to do is when we get our data, we want to populate this array. So what we do is we just say self, and what do we say? Self dot characters, and that's going to be decoded data dot results, right? So we get those results and we put them in characters, right? And after that, we will be sorted. And in case something goes wrong, we're just going to come here and we say, we're going to print to our console. We're not going to do anything fancy, no fancy schmancy stuff. We're just going to say error and we say dot localized description, like so. And after this, we are just going to call this. And for us to make sure that the URL session works, we're just going to say dot resume, right? So that will resume the task and it will allow us to actually put this into place, right? Now we're done with the network service, we're done with the model. What we need to do now is to create the parts, the visual stuff that you can see. So let's put everything on the screen, make sure it works. So we come here, we have our VStack, we could get rid of the padding, ditch this, and now we're just going to have a VStack. And now in our VStack, what we want to do is first come here, we say, let VM, and VM is just going to be network service, like so. And we're just going to have a list. For now, what we want to do is just, let's put everything on the screen, right? Now for our list, we're just going to come here and we say VM dot characters, right? And here we're just going to say, in this closure, we're going to say character, and say in. And what you're going to have here is going to be a text. And what's going to be the text? The text is going to be character dot, I believe, name, right? Let's just have their names. Of course, it's not going to work because we are not calling it. And we could come here and we say dot on appear to trigger it. On appear, like so. On appear, like so. And here we're just going to say VM dot fetch characters, like so, right? And if we do that, we're going to get all the names, right? We're going to get Rick Sanchez, Morty, Summer, etc, so on and so forth. Now, we have actually fetched all the data, but what we could do is we could essentially outsource this to maybe like a character row and then just pass the information to a character row and see the image and the name. So let's do that. So what we do is we come here, we create a new file. This is going to be a new SwiftUI file, and it's going to be called something like character row. And basically what it's going to do is it's just going to be a H tag. H tag with an async image and a text next to it with the name, right? So what that is, it should look like is we come here and we say something like var character, and this is going to be a type of character, right? It's going to be passed in, and we're just going to come here and we say we want async image, like so, async image, and we want the URL. The URL is going to come from the character.image, which is going to be a URL. And in the closure, what we could have here is we could come here and we say image in, and we could use that image, come here, make it resizable, image, and say dot resizable, like so. Okay, why is this doing this, right? We want image.resizable, maybe put it in a different line. Come here, say we want to give it a clip shape, say here, clip shape, like so. The shape in question is going to be rounded rectangle, and that's going to have a corner radius. Let's have a corner radius. Corner radius is going to be, let's take the 25 they suggest, right? It's going to be 25, and the style is going to be dot continuous, like so. And after that, we give it a frame. Say here, we want to give it a frame, and this is going to be a width. A frame, we want the width to be, let's say 100. The height is also going to be 100, right? And after that, we need a placeholder. So let's come here and say placeholder, like so. And the code for the placeholder is just going to be the progress view, like so, right? And maybe, yeah, let's just leave it as a progress view, right? And we could get rid of this preview, save ourselves a bit of time. And now I think we have everything we need. We need to call it on our app though. And we're calling it character, it doesn't have an A. Maybe add the A there and then correct it here, character, like so. Build it and see it run. Hopefully it still works. It's taking its sweet time for some unfathomable reason. So we have Ricky Sanchez, Morty Smith, Summer Smith, etc., right? So we have that, and what we could do here is just pass in our character row, which needs a character, and we pass in our character like so. And now we are going to have our character, and I don't think we put in a name. Did we put in a name? Okay, we didn't put in a name, right? Now for the progress view here, let's wrap this in an H tag. Just come here, put this in an H tag, that's that. So come here, put this in an H tag, and in the H tag, after this, we're just going to have the text, and what we're going to have here is going to be the character.name, right? So we do that, and that should, in theory, work. Okay, come here, and now we have Rick Sanchez, Morty Smith, Summer Smith, Beth Smith, etc., so on and so forth, right? And when those that are loading, you will see the spinning loading, right? And then this one doesn't have an image, right? So basically that's how we would use URL sessions to do this. This is one of 3 ways you could use to fetch data in Swift apps, and I'm also going to look at the others, right? So that is done. Thank you for watching. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.